So fair warning as I start off, I'm not an urbanist by any means. My role at ICLEI is really in the development of accounting protocols for greenhouse gas emissions, for doing emissions inventories and developing forecast and climate action plans. I also develop software tools to help local governments do those things. But I can talk a little bit about ICLEI, my organization, in terms of what we do internationally and how that relates back to new urbanism. So what is ICLEI? It used to stand for International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, and it was started in Cambridge, Mass. Started here in the States, initially around cities wanting to do something where the federal government was not doing anything, which was to take a stand against ozone depleting gases. So it was Cambridge, Mass, and I believe Santa Monica that first said, we're going to ban these substances in our towns, and that really catalyzed the movement to higher levels of government taking action. So that's been really the model that ICLEI has tried to propagate for really a lot of other themes that come up in various places. So whatever the problem is that you're interested in dealing with locally, we can help build thematic networks around that, connect you to other cities regionally that are trying to do the same thing, and also in the case where those higher levels of government are not functioning. Our membership is pretty diverse all over the globe. We represent megacities, we represent tiny towns, and it's all about really giving a voice to the local governments and cities in terms of tackling really global problems. So the thesis for discussion that I'd like to put forth is that ICLEI's programs across the globe, wherever they happen, really reflect those local priorities. So if there are any Agenda 21 conspiracy theorists in the audience here today, it's not top-down. It is exactly the opposite of that we take those concerns up and help use them as a lens to really address some of the really global issues. So maybe the question is then, does new urbanism sort of share that, new urbanism in the international context, share that same pattern, that really the priorities are local, but there are some themes that run across all the different sort of expressions of new urbanism. So just to talk a little bit about our different programs, I mean, they really have a different focus depending on what the context is. In developed nations or developing nations, it's really about starting from scratch, and can we do developments in a place where we don't need extensive wastewater treatment infrastructure and energy infrastructure, that these can be packaged within individual developments and be more or less self-sustaining and more resilient that way. As opposed to what happens in more developed nations. So a lot of our programs in the European context, very similar to what Johanna was talking about, really are focused on health and wellness of communities, cohesiveness, that sort of thing. We have programs around resource-efficient cities that again reflect these local concerns. Water conservation, of course, in Africa and South America and Australia, making sure that places have the water that they need to drink, especially if they're not getting that support from higher levels of government. Doing more integrated planning, doing more with green infrastructure to again be more self-sustaining. Waste management is a big issue, of course, in a lot of the developing areas. So we have programs around that sort of rise out of those places. Interesting thing is I was looking at our global website. I noticed that the Brazil program has also taken a new turn to specifically look at waste management for large sporting events. Of course, the World Cup and soon the Olympics will be there. So really, again, figuring out solutions to the local problems that are happening there. We have programs around biodiverse cities. So one of I guess the big program is our local action for biodiversity. And again, it takes a lot of different forms in terms of what they're focused on. So in Abu Dhabi and in Curitiba, there's really a lot of development going on, so the focus there is more on protecting ecosystem services, keeping those natural green infrastructures intact, so they don't lose them. And then again, in the more developed places, Europe, United States, it's about enhancing open spaces and again, doing more for thinking about people and well-being of people. Transportation, our transportation programs are very much focused in Southeast Asia. This was one really excellent example of something that ICLEI pulled off in Suwon City, South Korea. Was the Eco Mobility Fest, where a neighborhood of, I think, over 4,000 people took 1 month, banned all street traffic. They developed interesting new little pocket parks, tried out all kinds of different mobility options, and the lasting impact of that has been pretty significant. That they now have at least car-free weekends. Many of the residents in that area have sort of permanently adopted more eco-mobility lifestyle from this one initiative. Quick plug for ICLEI USA, because we are sort of independent from all those other things. The different regional offices really do operate independently, but what we do here has been focused much on just doing greenhouse gas accounting. So we have led this really the movement on doing something about climate change in the U.S. Really since the mid-90s is when we got started on it, and cities started taking an interest in it. Now we finally see the feds getting on board. We also do things around motivating local political movements. So we had the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement that really sort of catalyzed cities doing something about climate change. We have a new campaign. Resilience, of course, is a big topic here at CNU. The Resilient Communities for America Agreement, basically getting your local elected officials to make commitments to build more resilient cities. So what's the theme that sort of ties it all back to what's happening sort of as a movement? And really the interesting thing that's, we have all these different programs, but it's coming back as cities and other subnational governments are increasingly recognized as key players in excuse me. So increasingly recognized as key players in these global climate talks. So at the last Conference of Parties, the big UN climate meetings that originally had the Kyoto Agreement and has been I think, roundly dismissed, every subsequent one about nations not doing anything. Finally, cities are having their day, and they had a whole cities day at the last one, and plans for the next two Conference of Parties meetings are really taking a bigger focus on what cities can do, because they are much more sort of nimble and much more responsive to the local populace that says, okay, we want to do something about climate change. And so within this, I think that new urbanism, those are the actions that these cities are going to be taking, and that are going to be really the movers for doing, taking real action on climate change. And of course, I don't have to talk so much about the benefits of transit-oriented design and complete streets. We all know what those do for reducing transportation. Also great for water management if you're doing great green infrastructure. Density and mixed use, it really opens up a lot more opportunities for doing some of the big actions that really are impactful in a city, like district energy systems, as well as just sort of making it so